Tonight's Migration Minute is brought to you by the Flock Blocker. Flock Blocker. Block your flock, not your view, or other things. Visit theflockblocker.com to learn more. This is your April 26th Migration Minute. I'm local chickadeeologist Richard Sissel, and migration is becoming a real adventure, which is the explanation for why I'm wearing such an amazing hat. So let's jump in and see what's coming tonight in bird migration. Before we look at the forecast for tonight, let's go back and look at what happened last night in migration across the U.S. We can see where the big migration movements were happening last night. Obviously, we had a little bit up here in the Pacific Northwest, but you can see where the bulk of it was happening. We had some scattered throughout here, a little bit up here, blah, blah, blah. But where was the bulk of this 300 and almost 70 million birds at the peak moment last night? Where was it happening? Well, right there, okay? Right there's where it's happening, except for this little spot right here. Don't know what's happening there, but birds were moving up from central Texas up into the eastern Great Plains. You can see Iowa and Missouri, big movements there. Central Louisiana, big movements there. All of the Gulf Coast states, in fact, saw a lot of movement. So this is last night. This is around 1 o'clock Eastern time. So technically this morning at 1 o'clock Eastern time, April 26th, right? But the night of April 25th into April 26th, this is where it's all happening. It was a big night last night. And when you look at the running totals for 3 nights, we are starting to reach those points where in 3 nights, 1 billion birds will have been moving through the skies over the U.S. Let's go to our next map, which is the forecast for tonight. So for the forecast for tonight, obviously a lot of weather events happening right here. You can see that, pretty obvious, and it's stopping much movement from happening on the western half of the U.S. Where is that migration happening tonight? Well, it's in central Texas, a little bit up into the eastern Great Plains, okay? That's where most of it's happening, though, is right here. That's the hot spot tonight, predicting over 270 million birds. So this is the night of the 26th, going into the 27th. That's where the movement's happening. If you're in Texas, you are pretty much in or about to be in the next couple of days, the peak time for migration for your region. Everywhere else, we're still waiting for those floodgates to really start pouring open, though you can see in this part of the country, a lot of birds starting to move as we saw what happened last night. And then after the storm system moves along, you'll see what's coming up. Before we jump into the forecast for the next few nights, let's look at what's happening right now as I'm recording this. There's some weird bird movement there, some sort of unusual thing happening where the birds are flying from east to west. Don't know if they're stuck in some sort of weather event that's pulling them that way. We'll see tomorrow what it looked like after it was all said and done. But where's the movement happening right now? Well, exactly where the forecast predicted. Central Texas and the Gulf Coast states up into the southern part of the Great Plains there, into that area where that system is stopping them. So they're all stopping right there because of that weather event that's happening. Okay, if we look ahead 2 nights to the night of April 27th into the 28th, this big weather event right here still giving us problems. And obviously we have another weather event out in the Rockies, still keeping those of us who are in the Rockies from seeing our big waves of birds. We're waiting ever so patiently, so patiently. It's in fact all I have left is patience because I don't have any birds. But big things happening in other places. So even with that storm system, you can see big numbers of birds are predicted to be moving in that East Texas, West Louisiana, that region right there. Look at that. Big numbers of birds going to be in those areas either before or after this storm system moves along. A little bit up the Pacific coast. Not a lot happening there. But this is where it's at over the next few nights. This is where it's going to be at. And after this system moves out and gets the bleep out of here, gets the flock out of here, the birds will hopefully start to pour out going this way. Okay. Hopefully we will start to see some birds going somewhere. Okay. That's the night of the 27th going into the 28th. Let's move ahead to our next map. So this is the night of the 28th going into the 29th. Again, that system right there, still slowing a lot of things down, but it's almost out of here. So the night of the 28th, 260 million birds. The previous night was 270 million birds. Big nights, 3 big nights in a row again. Still not the biggest nights we're going to see, unless, of course, we go over the prediction. But Pacific Coast, seeing a little bit of movement. Still, where's the heat at? Well, the heat is on right here. That is where movement is at its greatest. Those Gulf Coast states are still hitting it hard. Oh, do you hear that? That's the phone ringing. It sounds like we have a lights out alert. Let me answer the phone here. Hello? What's that? Lights out alert. Yeah. Yeah, where's it gonna be? Okay. Okay, I'll let everyone know. You had to talk really loud on phones back when they looked like that. At least that's what I understand from TV. So let's go to our lights out alert and find out where we can help birds most in the upcoming nights. Where are the biggest lights out needs? You can see, obviously, that big area in the Gulf Coast states. That's where it's most important. Also, a little bit up, Pacific Northwest. We need some lights out in those areas. And, of course, up in the Great Lakes, you can see some need up there, all the way up into the Northeast as well. Those are the big ones for tonight. Let's look ahead to tomorrow night, the night of the 27th going into the 28th. With that, we hopefully give you enough time to prepare yourself, prepare others to get lights out. So the night of the 27th, where do we need lights out? Well, it's pretty obvious. We need it here, here, and all the way up there. Those are the big areas where we need lights out. Obviously, that's the most populated side of the United States, and it's also where our bird migration is oftentimes at its greatest. It's most amazing out in that part of the U.S., but that's not the only place we need it. From the desert Southwest all the way up into the PNW, we need lights out there. And in parts of the Rockies and Intermountain West, we could use some lights out. If you're in the Front Range, need some lights out in that area as well. Again, this is the night of the 27th going into the 28th. Let's look ahead to our final night of the Lights Out Alert forecast. Lot of red because this is going to be a bigger night, and birds especially are going to be moving in areas where we have a lot of human development. So where do we need lights out? We need it here all the way up through the Northeast. Okay, and then we need it all the way up the Pacific coast. But you can even see the Intermountain West is starting to get in on it. We need lights out in the Front Range of Colorado, the Front Range of Utah, the Boise area in Idaho, all sorts of places across all of those areas. We need lights out on the night of the 28th, going into the 29th. We can help birds out this way. And if you haven't seen previous videos on why this is important, lights in these areas you can see on this map, the areas of great development, those lights disorient birds. They cause stress to birds. It can increase window collisions in birds. So we can do more by helping our nocturnal migrants by shutting off our lights during this few week period of intense migration. We can help our birds and give them safer skies to travel through. So shut off your lights. Shut them off. Gotta spell off. There we go. Shut off lights. If you know anyone who can help, get them to shut off lights. We need it in houses. We need it in businesses. We need it in government agencies, shutting off lights that are unnecessary for safety purposes. Get them shut off. Get them treated to prevent that light from going up into the sky. Get lights focused on the ground where they're needed to help humans and not harm birds. For your April 26th Migration Minute, I'm local chickadeologist Richard Cecil, and we'll see you tomorrow.